embarrass him or something. But he's the individual who's going to meetings, he's talking with organizations, and he's talked to a bunch of them already. So if you're one of those organizations, you can expect to hear from us in the near future about having an initial get together. And really, as I said, it's open to everybody because all of us at some point come into contact with immigrants and refugees. So, and if I can make a quick plug, for those of you that are interested, April 15th at the Center in Davenport, we are holding our annual U.S. Citizenship Honors Dinner. And we have a speaker from Afghanistan, from Benin, from Mexico, and from Vietnam. So it should be an interesting thing. Thank you. Oh, it'll start, doors will open at 6. The program starts, dinner starts at 6:30, program starts at 7:15, and it's a free event. We'll have a silent auction. We have childcare, or at least the plan is to have childcare for anybody who brings their children, and the dinner will be upstairs and everything else will be downstairs. So that's it. Thank you, Allison.
Lots of good things coming ahead. So again, I'm so pleased you're all here. That information? Yeah, we usually post a lot of events that aren't just ours, but if you're really interested, you should sign up for our newsletter because you get all this information and more. And so you can just know everything that's going on in the Quad Cities. It's overwhelming. There's a lot of great stuff. So thank you again for being here. And again, this is kind of one of our first big events live post-COVID. So I'm really pleased that there's this kind of audience. And so one human family has this big of an audience, and QC Air has this big of a participation too. It's great to be out and about. All right, before we get going, and I will introduce the panelists in a minute, we do have a piece written by one of our former board members, Margie Mahia Carabello. And Margie is also was on the planning committee for putting on this event. And she has written a piece, and I hope this will set the tone for our discussion.
So when immigration is talked about, we often talk in numbers. How many thousands are crossing the border? How many hundreds live in my community? How many get deported every day? Today, I want to talk about the humanity at the heart of this issue. I want to attach the names of Mario and Rosa Juarez Hernandez to the immigration discussion in this spoken word piece titled, "I Died While Waiting in Line." Today, I say adios to my village. The time has come to stop burning fires so that my neighbors see the smoke and believe I'm cooking something to eat, not knowing it's smoke, just smoke. Today, I take the $7,000 friends, neighbors, and family have gathered to pay a human smuggler to transport me closer to the American dream. I know not what awaits me. I know only what I leave behind: hunger, poverty, violence. I walk for miles and miles to meet the coyote, the human smuggler. I join 20 others in the back of a closed U-Haul truck. We say very little to each other, but we all have the glimmer in our eyes of the elusive American dream. The smuggler drives and drives into the beyond. He suddenly stops quickly, opens the back door, and tells us to get out and run. It is dark. It is very dark. I'm afraid, so very afraid. A man reaches out to me and says, "Here, take my hand, I will help you." Daylight comes. We're in the desert. The sun is hot. The sun is burning. We walk, we run. We reach a border crossing, tired, hungry, thirsty. We jump in the river and swim. And when we finally open our eyes, we are in America. It is still he and I, Mario and Rosa. We make it to Iowa, where he has family. We get married, we have children, and in between, we apply for green cards, work authorization numbers, citizenship. And so it is, we live life, working and waiting, waiting and working, diligently making monthly payments to an attorney and to INS for legal fees. And then the unthinkable happens. Mario has a massive heart attack and dies. It is on this day that I realize we have been working and waiting, waiting and working for 15 years. 15 years of monthly payments and not moving any closer to permanency in this country. I continue. I must go on, making the monthly payments, hoping and dreaming that what Mario did not obtain, I someday will. And so life continues, working and waiting, waiting and working. And then the unthinkable happens again. I have a massive heart attack and I die. I die. 18 years now, all my days, working and waiting, standing in a line that gets you closer to the American dream, only to hear, not today, maybe soon, or any day now. And I die. I die waiting in an imaginary, unmoving line. Rest in peace, Mario and Rosa Juarez Hernandez.
Wow, that was really beautiful. Thank you. So these are real people affected by man-made policies, right? So we're going to hear from our panelists about some of the people they deal with, some of their own experiences. And my hope is that they can share ways that these processes could be improved. And we can maybe as a group decide on some of the difference that we can make. So I hope you're all ready to learn a lot about a very complex thing. I know I'm going to learn a lot. But we will be hearing today from our panelists. First, we'll hear from Myra Hernandez, and they each will be talking about some experiences, some people they deal with, some observations from a unique perspective. And Myra is with Quad Cities Interfaith, and she's a great organizer. And as you all know, she's working on this Scott County Community ID. So if you want to get involved in that, here. We have Ratko Rastovic from World Relief, and he told me he's worked there for 23 years in the Quad Cities office. And so he has been working a lot with some of the new refugees coming through the Quad Cities. And then we have Griselda and Karina Garnica, and they're not sisters. But they both work in the diocese office with immigration and have lots of years of experiences and, real touches with people with real issues. We have Summer Alchin, who is an immigration attorney from Muscatine, and I'm so happy that we did get an immigration attorney here for some of that knowledge that she can share with us. And then our last panelist will be from Zoom from Chicago, Fred Sal, and he's with the Illinois Coalition for Immigration and Refugee Rights, which is a nonprofit organization based in Chicago. They only have jurisdiction in Illinois, but I think hearing what they do, might motivate for some of us to push for the same kind of efforts in Iowa. So hopefully Fred can share some of his experiences with their organization as well. So that being said, we are ready to get started, and at the end we'll have time for discussion and Q&A. And so I'm really hoping to learn a lot and for a fruitful discussion at the end. So Myra, are you ready? And we'll just pass along the mic.
Good morning, everybody. So my name is Mayra Hernandez. I am the lead organizer with Quad Cities Interfaith, and I've been with QCI for almost 2 years. Prior to that, I was also an organizer with the Center for Worker Justice in Iowa City, and was also a Catholic Campaign for Human Development intern there. So that's really where I got my start into community organizing. And that's also where I started to get more comfortable sharing my story as a DACA recipient. I am from Mexico. I came to the US when I was 4 years old. And that was really, that sent my whole life in a different trajectory than I was expecting it to go. So I'll talk a little bit, about my story as a personally directly impacted person on DACA, and some of the other panelists on here will also have things to contribute to it. But for me, as I was a 4-year-old coming to the U.S. I had really no idea what that was, what we were doing, what was happening. I just knew that I wasn't going to be seeing my family for a very long time. And so it was both my parents and I who made that journey here to a small town in Iowa called Brooklyn, Iowa. If anybody's familiar with that little town, it's about 1,200 people, and that's really where we landed. We got here in the winter of 2001 or so, and so it was a very shocking and lonely experience, to say the least. I came with not knowing English. And so that barrier right there, that language barrier, I remember it so vividly. My first year in pre-K, only speaking up 3 times. And every single time that I said something that was simple, like, I need to go to the bathroom or something else, everybody was shocked to hear that I could speak. They really thought that I didn't have the ability to speak. And, for a big part of that, it was true. I didn't have the ability to speak. And that really, contributed to a lot of me feeling out of place. I didn't, belong. There was this huge identity crisis at 4 years old. And so it was a very, shocking experience to go through. And that first year, like a lot of other children who were brought here as undocumented immigrants, especially, that young, sometimes you think, well, people adapt. Kids are adaptable and they learn quickly. And it's true. I did learn quickly. I learned the language faster than my parents were able to. But still, nonetheless, that a lot of that impact was already done. And so from there on out, it was kind of rediscovering who I was, where my place in this world was. And then thinking, a lot of the time thinking, I don't belong here. I shouldn't be here. This isn't, my country. This isn't where I should be. A lot of those lies that I believed growing up were very, very prevalent, and very impactful to how I saw myself, as a young kid. And so even though, by the time I was in kindergarten, I had learned enough English to be more comfortable with it and speak it ever so much more fluently, that stigma, that belief that I wasn't supposed to be here was still there. And as a little kid, I remember having to keep the secret of what my immigration status was from the whole world, because I had this, sense of responsibility, not just to myself, but also to my family. And, in this small town, there wasn't a lot of immigrants. This wasn't a very normal thing to see, or this group of, there wasn't a lot of us there. And so, we were very cautious about what we say to who. And so I remember, like, as a 7-year-old thinking, I have this huge secret weighing on me, and that has this huge implications if I were to say something. And then on the other side is also dealing with a lot of even racism as early as, second, third grade. I remember specifically one instance where somebody on the bus one day, she just said to me, "My parents can send your parents back to Mexico." And thinking, she's right, you know, that she's right. Her parents can. Although like these were assumptions, you know, whether she knew that was true or not, I don't know. But like the impact that just left on me as a young kid was very big. And I mean, I still remember it. So it's impactful to today. So, you know, a lot of those instances really fed into how I saw myself, and how little confidence I had with sharing who I really was, even to my friends who, you know, were, you know, I was good friends with them, but I never really shared that part of me. It was always this big secret that really I felt defined me a lot of the time. And so then when, you know, during the time that we were getting into high school and people were starting to get their driver's permit, driver's licenses, that's when it really started to hit me as well. Is like, what am I going to say to keep, you know, this illusion that I of my status, and, you know, surprisingly and just, you know, miraculously almost, it was that same time that the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals executive order was passed by President Barack Obama. And so I remember the day that we were watching the news and that, you know, that announcement was made. And my dad, you know, I was sitting next to my dad and he said, you know what this means? And I said, not really, but it sounds really exciting. He's like, well, this means you're going to be the first one in our family to go to college. This means that a lot of doors are going to open for you because, you know, all my life, I was very hyper aware of what my immigration status was and what that meant for me and my parents. And so just knowing that there was this, you know, this opportunity for me to no longer be afraid of what's going to happen to me after I graduate. Am I going to be able to go to college? Am I going to be able to get a job that I want? And that's always something that my parents pushed me to think about even before DACA was think about what you're going to do after high school. You know, you are going to college. You are going to be successful. Like they always ingrained that into me, although they weren't sure. But I think they did a really good job in trying to put that little bit of comfort and confidence within me. And so, you know, DACA just came at the perfect time for me. And as soon as that was implemented, you know, there was a lot of fear from the immigrant community about what the unintended consequences could be. You know, there was still a lot of uncertainty, like, would this mean people could be more, you know, likely to be deported because now the government had all our information. You know, there was a lot of questions, but for us in my situation, I knew that I wanted to apply for it. I wanted to take whatever risk was involved with it because I felt like the benefits of it outweighed the risks. And since then, they have, you know, DACA isn't perfect. There's a lot that it isn't. It is, you know, what I consider it is like a membership to the United States. Every 2 years we have to reapply for it, and we're vetted, you know, extremely. You know, the government knows everything about us, where we live, who our parents are, where they work, where we work, how much income we have, all of it. So they know exactly where we're at and who we are. And so we're some of the, you know, most vetted individuals. And so to know that even that much is, you know, at stake and is being, you know, threatened by the government, is really, it just brings more uncertainty. And I feel like a lot of my life has been uncertainty. And once we had this little bit of, you know, confirmation that, hey, you're going to be fine for at least, you know, the time that you have DACA. Now again, it's like up in the air. And so it's never, you know, the sense of I know what's going to happen. It's always up in the air and I never know what's going to happen. And although I have DACA, and DACA provides a pathway to work legally, to obtain a driver's license, it doesn't provide a pathway to citizenship or residency. And so you're always in this limbo stage. You know, every 2 years you may get denied for whatever reason. and every 2 years, you're paying a hefty sum of money to the US government to ask them, hey, can you let me stay for another 2 years? Because that's all it is deferred action. So you're just not going to be deported for those 2 years that you have the permit. But so it's always about keeping track of when is my expiration date gonna happen. So I need to prepare, 4 months in advance. I need to make sure that I have the money to pay the government, the money to pay the lawyer if I need one. And so it's never, you're fully part of this country. Although I feel like, growing up in the US, I know it so much more than I know Mexico. And it wasn't until last summer, after 20 years of being here in the US, that I was able to go back to Mexico and visit through the advanced parole. So advanced parole as a DACA recipient, I was able to apply for it, which just gives me, I asked permission basically from the US government to give me a specific time to be able to go back to Mexico for a very specific reason. I had to prove with doctor's notes and a bunch of other documentation about why I was going, how long I was going to be there, when I was going to come back. And so that process took, and the whole reason why I applied for advanced parole was because my grandfather passed away in 2021. And I applied as an emergency, an emergency reason, and I had all the documentation ready, but it still took 7 months for them to finally say, yes, you're able to go. And so for me, I was not able to go to my grandfather's funeral, and somebody like my mom, who's that's who her father was, she never saw him again after those, since leaving Mexico. And so that's one of the things that a lot of immigrants give up in order to reach a better life and provide a better opportunities for the kids, is like, I want to provide a better life for my children. I'm giving up my parents. I'm giving up my life there because I know that this may be better for my kids. And although there's a lot of negative things like having to deal with racism and discrimination and feeling out of place, like that is a huge sacrifice that I do I'm grateful for my parents doing, and I realize what they have given up. And so right now, knowing that DACA is in this limbo, and there's so many other people who are no longer children who have been under DACA for at least maybe some 10 years now since the implementation of it. These are people that have lived here, who've grown up here, who see this as their home. They have family here, homes, education. And so, terminating DACA would be a huge impact to, the US itself. And although I advocate for DACA and for its protection, I know that it's there's also so many other people who are undocumented right now who don't have that ability to have that work permit. And so in my work, I focus a lot on the needs of undocumented people as well, because it's in my interest to do so, because I see the people that I work with, I see my parents and my family, and I want to, all those years of feeling out of place and, kind of pushed down, this is the way that I'm trying to regain that power back for myself, is that I am regaining my voice, feeling comfortable sharing my story, and then developing other people in the community to do the same. So like, for example, the Scott County Community ID, I know the need for a basic identification. And so that's why it's so important to me to work on it and to implement it and to get people excited and engaged, because like we take this, this basic right for granted, the right to an identity. And so this work is so important because it's personal, and it impacts, you know, even something that small and makes a huge impact in the lives of many people. Is just having access to an identification. And also in the process, you know, we want to win the community ID, but also in the process to develop people to feel comfortable and powerful enough to say, I'm not going to just be in the shadows. I'm not going to take, you know, the treatment that I've gotten. I'm going to ask for justice. I'm going to raise my voice and say, I'm proud to be here. And I contribute so much to it. And so I think that's my cue. So I'm happy to answer any questions at the end, but thank you so much for having me and listening to me.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ratko Rastovic. I work with World Relief. And I just want to tie into what Maya was saying about importance of having that documentation and how much time and effort and energy it takes for a person to focus all of their attention just to get that ID, that legal status, that it just leaves so much less time for just enjoying your life, going to a park. You just cannot relax. You have to think constantly about your status, your documents, your visas, your dates, expiration dates. It's just incredible. When we talk about refugees, I want to also just paint a little bit of human picture about that. Nobody decides just to wake up one morning and become a refugee. It's usually starts with a burning village or armed group coming to hunt you down because of your nationality, origin, particular belonging to a particular social group. And then you're just forced to pick up whatever you can and just leave your village, leave your city, leave your country, and go where it's safe. Often during that process, families are broken, torn apart. Parents leave children. Children are with grandparents, uncles, aunts. And then probably those parents will not see their children for a long, long time and not going to be reunited. It is true that refugees, when they come to the United States, they have secure legal status, permanent status, which is a positive thing, of course. But that burden they carry when they're coming to the United States makes it a bumpy road for them to secure that permanent status in the future, because they carry all of that weight that they left behind them while coming to the United States. So when refugees arrive, they do have permanent status, but that's not end of it. They have to continue their work to keep that permanent status, to adjust the status to lawful permanent status after 1 year when they're after being in the United States. And during that time, they usually have documents, of course. They have their EADs, employment authorization cards. They can get their state ID. And then after 1 year, they apply for the green card. But the problem is the green card process now takes, the last night I checked, 35.5 months to get the green card once you apply from the date immigration receives their application. In the meantime, those 35.5 months, their employment authorization documents are expired. Their state ID is expired. And I had personally witnessed people coming to me with the employment termination notices. They're losing their jobs, not be able to pay for their apartment, things like that. And not many of them are familiar with immigration laws. Of course, they are not focused on that. They're focused on the day-to-day survival. They're thinking about their families back home. And they're not paying attention on those expiration dates. And often too late, they come to our office for help and asking for extension on their EAD cards, things like that. And during that process, of course, until they become permanent resident, we try and get families reunited. So we try to get them apply for certain reliefs, benefits the immigration offers, applying for their immediate family members. But that process is also, in my opinion, also broken. I have mothers, fathers, waiting 5-6 years now to be reunited with their children. Often they're given an opportunity once they receive a green card. They can file for a family relative petition with a green card. But often the people I work with, they're refugees and who have family who are also in the refugee camps. And that relative petition is also requiring certain processes and documents, like you have to have a passport, valid passport for travel, which refugees cannot often get because they're, of course, refugee in a refugee camp. They cannot get a passport, or they have to, family here in the United States has to be able to provide prove that they're able to sponsor their families, and often families here cannot, they don't earn enough to sponsor their own family members. Another problem is with our refugee elderly population that I'm seeing here that they're facing, is that elderly refugees are problem is having learning English is really high, and the only source of income is supplemental security income, is SSI. And our current policy says that if you are not naturalized within 7 years of arriving to United States, you are losing your right for that benefit. So often we see elderly refugee population struggling with obtaining their naturalization status and losing their benefits and losing their ability to support themselves. Now I'm going to talk a little bit, just continue to talk a little bit about our Afghan population that recently arrived to our community, and some of the portions of the Afghan Adjustment Act. I believe Fred can talk more about the intricacies of the act itself and where it stands right now in the Congress and Senate. So just to give you a little bit of background, go back to August 2021. Everybody knows what happened. So we had about 85,000 vulnerable Afghans, allies of United States, who had to leave, were evacuated from Kabul. And then they were evacuated to a third country where they were vetted, screened, processed. And out of those 85,000, 76,000 made it to United States, were placed on a military basis where they were given additional processing, medical screenings. After that, they were resettled into the communities across the United States. In Quad Cities here, we received around 300 individuals. And the Afghan population, unlike refugees, do not have a permanent residency status. They're not given that option. They're given a temporary humanitarian parole. Some of the Afghan population did apply and received something called special immigrant visa. That is given to only to interpreters and employees of the U.S. contractors in Afghanistan and Iraq. So most of them, 70,000, because of the backlog of the SIV process, were not able to receive those visas. There's a huge backlog for those. It's about 5-6 years, as I understand. It takes a long time to get it, so that's not going to be an immediate relief for them right now. So humanitarian parole is given to them for 2 years. So we opted to look for some other options like asylum process or temporary protected status that would be available for them. And in our community, we do have a lack of resources. We do not have a lot of options here locally to have that asylum process started and continued. So we were, thanks to National Justice Immigration Justice Center, we were organized some sessions, workshops in Chicago. We transported 20 people at one trip for pro se asylum application processing. So we made some headways there. Now we're starting to see clients and screen them for a possible application for temporary protected status, all in hope that the government will finally go ahead and realize that this Afghan Adjustment Act is needed to give them a way to get the permanent status. So I understand that in August of 2022, two groups, separate groups, introduced two separate bills. I guess Senate 4787 Act and House of Representatives 8685 were basically introduced almost at the same time. But there was no progress on it. I guess there was not enough majority votes to pass those bills. So we're in hope that this will finally go through. That, I mean, this process, the Adjustment Act, would give chance to Afghans to, like refugees, go ahead and apply after the proper vetting and screening. They get a chance to get that permanent status here in the United States. So that's basically all I had, and I just want to use this opportunity to invite everybody to World Relief Gala on May 4th. Show your support to our immigrant and refugee communities. Thank you.
Hi, Griselda Garnica. I've been working for the Diocese of Devon for almost over 20 years. I started just like nothing, like just archiving and doing things here and there. But after I seen the need in the community and being an immigrant, I noticed that this was my place to be. The diocese, we mostly help the families that have been separated. For one reason or another, they have to leave their children behind. And we help them with the consular process or adjustment of status. For fiancé visas, it'll be the adjustment of status that we do. We mostly help legal permanent resident and U.S. citizens to get their families here in the United States. But we also have other immigrants that they do not have anybody here in the United States, and they have no way to immigrate to the United States. Some people, they're looking for a better life for their family. Some they escaping from violence and crime in their countries. I had a case that I couldn't help. He was a small business owner in Mexico. He was kidnapped. He was tortured and demanding a lot of money to the family in order to have him released. Finally, he was released, but he was in very bad conditions, mentally and physically. He is afraid now because he is still receiving threats from these organizations. He needs to pay every week a certain amount of money. If he does not pay, then the family will suffer the consequences. Fortunately, he has business and he is able to pay, but not for very long. So I was trying to get humanitarian parole, some kind of source to get here in the United States safely. Unfortunately, there is nothing because his case is not unique. It's very common in Mexico, and there is nothing for them. The only thing is for him to come to the border and try to request asylum, which he doesn't feel safe doing that either. Sometimes I feel with my hands tied that I want to help these people. And because of all the regulations, there's no way. Karina Multico.
Hi again, my name is Karina. I work for the Diocese of Davenport. We are co-workers and yes, as a program, we're struggling with a lot of cases. They are stuck in overseas. We do family reunification process. We help people from all around the world. Believe it or not, here in the United States, there is a lot of people coming to our office from California, Texas, North Carolina, Maine. I mean, how they come here because some people who residing in the area come to our office, they feel comfortable with our service and they refer us with another people. And I was really surprised when I get the first client from LA. I say, how comes if you are in a nice area where you can get the service over there? But they say, you know what? My friend came to you. You did a very good job. You explained the process very well. Over there in LA, there is a lot of fraud. They ask for money and they promise you that you're gonna get a work permit, you're gonna become a legal permanent resident, and after that, you're gonna be a US citizen. Surprise, pay tons of money and they get deported. So that's the reason they come to us. I mean, thanks God, we have the opportunity to provide this service. Just like Griselda say, as an immigrant, we know the feeling. We try to help the most we can. It's really hard because sometimes there is nothing you can do. I'm gonna tell you a story about a case I have from an African family. She's suffering from cancer. She has cancer. She has been in the hospital several times, in and out, in and out. She left behind 3 kids, 2 girls and a little boy. She petitioned for them. The 2 girls came to the United States and the little boy was left behind. We tried to bring the boy, but they denied the application for him. This little boy has been raped, 8 years old, and he's suffering from physical abuse too. She doesn't have any relatives over there to take care about him. I tried to do the process, ask the Congress for help to see if they can expedite the case, because it's really sad. I know there is not the only child over there in this situation. All around the world, there is a lot of situations similar. What we can do about this? We need to work together as a community. We need to fight for our rights, for the immigrants' rights. I know we have a lot of things against us, but we can do it. It's not easy, but we can do it. The process, unfortunately, at this time, immigration is taking for every single case. I have some cases since, before COVID, waiting for interviews in overseas. They are desperate to bring their families, especially because the situations in their countries are totally bad. I don't know what's going on with the system. I don't know why they are taking so long. Maybe my colleagues knows better than me. Maybe they can provide us some options and we can work together as a team to help these people, but it's really sad. It's really sad. These people come to the United States with the hope that they are gonna have a better life. When some people say, it's hard. It's really hard. Right now, with the cases for a single son or daughter from US citizen, The longest time waiting is for Mexico. They are working with 2001 to reach the priority date in order to be able to get the interview appointment to become to the United States. For the single daughters and sons for the legal permanent residents, the system said that they are current, they are working with the current applications. But what do they mean with the current applications? If they didn't approve the applications yet, how can they move forward? They need to approve the applications before they move forward, but that's what they say, they are current. I don't know what applications they are working with, but for the sons, Mary of, the older sons, 21 older, single, from legal permanent residence, they are taking 22 years to become. For the kids or sons, daughters, Mary of the US citizens, they are taking 26 years. So some of these kids, or let's call them kids, they get married, they have the hope to come to the United States through the US citizen parents and bring their kids. Guess what? The time when they reach the priority date, the kids age out. They don't qualify. As soon as they turn 21 years old, they're out. So, and for the siblings of the United States, the longest list is for Mexico, 22 years. Same problem with the siblings, Mary. They are planning to bring their kids to have a better life, a better opportunity. The kids age out at the time of the priority date. So we are trying to help them the best we can. We are working, but sometimes, like Risa, let's say, we feel tired. There is not too much we can do. I mean, our office operates like this. Everybody's welcome. Doesn't matter the race, colors, religion, age, everybody's welcome. A lot of people think that our program, we help only Hispanic. No. We provide service for everybody. How we do it, we provide an initial consultation intake. We set up an appointment. We review the case. If we can handle the case, we take it. If not, we refer to summer. Well, we give them a list of attorneys so they can help them, but most of them I refer to her. So, you know, where are we located? Comments, inputs are welcome. We are open to anything. Thank you.
We also handle U visas, VAWAs, but those processes are also taking a lot longer. For the U visa, we had a client who was victim of violence. She, in the process, on the waiting process, even to get the work permit, it takes about 3 to 4 years, 5 years now. I haven't checked lately. During the process, she got cancer. She had 3 kids. She was victim of abuse from her husband. And during that time, she died. The kids end up with the abuser. A year later, after she passed away, I received a notice from immigration. They were ready to process her case. It was too late. I just notified them the client already passed away, and they closed the case. So everything is taking very long time. People are dying on the waiting list. Children of legal permanent residents, they cannot get married. If they get married, they're out of the waiting list. unless the father is a US citizen. If the father naturalized and then the child marries, then they can immigrate. If it happens the other way around, forget it. You have to start from zero. Sometimes on this waiting list that is taking 23 years for siblings, the petitioner died. What happens with the application? It's dead. There's nothing that it could be done. Don't know what is the solution. The only solution that I see is probably the situation in every country around the world. The governments, they have to do something about it, so the people can have the opportunities that they're looking for in the United States. A lot of people, they don't want to come here to the United States, risking their lives or getting their children behind. They don't want to do that, but they're forced to do that for the sake of their family. And a lot of people, they don't understand that. They don't want to do that, and they have to do it. We need to find a solution, and I don't know what could be. The only thing is the government from each country, they have to do their part, which is never going to happen. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Summer Alchin, and I'm an immigration attorney located in Muscatine, Iowa. I practice exclusively immigration law. I've been a practicing immigration attorney for a little over 15 years, but I've been working in the field of immigration law for over 20 years. I know I have a baby face, you can't really tell. Thank you for having us here today and for all of you showing up. It means a lot to know that we have allies in the community and people that care. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what the barriers are that I see that my clients face. There's a couple that I'll start off with. The first one is our immigration laws. If you don't know by now that our immigration laws are very messed up, you're going to learn a lot today because they are. So I know that everybody hears oh, you just need to get in line. You just need to wait your turn. And that is not a realistic situation for a lot of people. When my ancestors came to the United States, they literally had to get on a boat and not die. That was it. You survived the trip. You got in. Great. That is not our immigration system anymore. There are 4 ways to come to the United States lawfully. You can have a family member petition for you. You can have a job petition for you. You can come as a refugee or apply for asylum once you get to the United States, or you can win the diversity lottery. That's it. You have 4 options. That's all you got. If you're having a family member file for you, it has to be a specific family member. It has to be a permanent resident or a US citizen. A permanent resident can file for their unmarried children, their spouses. That's it. A US citizen can file for their children, married or unmarried, their spouses, their parents, and brothers and sisters. So that's what you're limited to. You can't file for grandparents, you can't file for aunts and uncles, you can't file for nieces and nephews, cousins, nothing like that. If you don't fit into have one of those family members, you don't have a line to stand in. And just like they were explaining, depending on what your relationship is and what country you're from, your wait time could be as little as right now, realistically, the least amount of time you're going to wait is probably 2 years. And it could take up to 26 or more years in that line. An employer can file for you, but our employment laws are very strict as well. And you're really limited in who you can file a work petition for. Generally speaking, you have to be very highly educated or have a very specific skill set. Unskilled labor, which I don't think any labor is technically unskilled, but unskilled labor, it's very, very, very difficult to have an employer file for you. And again, those wait times are years waiting for those work visas. Refugee and asylum process, if you are fearful of your life or have been persecuted, if you're outside the United States, it's the refugee process, and you would register with UNHCR and they would eventually resettle you in the United States or another country. I have clients that were in refugee camps for 15, 20 years. So that process can take a very, very long time. Something important that I don't think a lot of Americans realize is that there is no refugee processing in the Western Hemisphere. Any country that is located in the Western Hemisphere, there are refugee camps. You can't register with UNHCR. So a lot of the refugee populations that we're seeing on our southern border and that are coming to the United States now, Central Americans, Cubans, Haitians, they don't have a place to register with. The only thing they can do is come to the United States and apply for asylum. So applying for asylum is the correct way to do it. That is what they're doing. So that's just an important caveat to throw out. Diversity lottery, it's what it is. There's 50,000 a year. If you're from a country that has low immigration rates, you pay an application fee, you throw your name in the hat. If they draw your name, you get a green card. You have to be from a country that has low immigration numbers though. So if you are from Mexico, India, countries with high already immigration rates, you don't qualify for that diversity lottery. So that's it. Those are your options for coming to the United States lawfully. So a lot of people don't have a line to stand in, or the line is ridiculously long. So that is a huge problem. Our immigration laws are very complicated, and I have a lot of clients come to my office that have been here for years, don't have criminal records, have children that are citizens, maybe are even in the military. What can we do to fix my status? And a lot of people have to say, I'm sorry, there's nothing that I can do. You don't qualify. And it's very, very heartbreaking and very stressful. But that's the situation. They've already covered the processing times. It's waiting for visas are terrible, but even cases that are processing here, waiting for work permits, a 10-year green card renewal. I have clients that have been waiting over a year to get just a renewal of their green card. Literally all they do is they pay the fee, they run their background checks, they mail them out a card. Why that is taking a year? I don't know. I don't have any valid reasons for that. I have hypotheses, but they're probably not valid reasons. So it's very, very stressful. One thing that you all can do as allies is advocate for comprehensive immigration reform. That's really only option that a lot of people have. Yes, we would love to have a DREAM Act, an actual DREAM Act where the DACA kids could apply for green cards, but that leaves out their parents, that leaves out their aunts and uncles, that leaves out people that have just been here for 20, 30 years plugging away, contributing to society and don't have anyone to petition for them. So we need comprehensive immigration law. We haven't had a comprehensive immigration policy since the 90s. So we very strongly need that. And there are things that Congress could do fairly easily to make that happen. So definitely whenever you hear bills that are being introduced that would push for comprehensive immigration reform, they sometimes phrase it as amnesty. It's not amnesty. You have to go through a process. You are paying fees. You are waiting in line. It's not like it's snap your fingers and it's done. Push for those. Contact your congressional representatives, your senators, to push for those reforms, because to a certain extent, a president can want to do whatever they want, say, I'm going to push for this. This is what I want, but it's Congress that passes those laws. It's Congress that has to do the work, which is frustrating considering Congress is a little difficult right now. But those are steps that you could take. Some other issues that I see come up with my clients is ability to hire legal representation. Theoretically, you should be able to do this process by yourself, right? Theoretically, it shouldn't matter whether you have legal representation or not, but it does matter. You are much more likely to have a successful case, much more likely to win your case in court specifically, or even with USCIS if you have legal representation. It does matter. Immigration law and tax law are the two most complicated areas of law. It matters whether you have legal representation or not. Costs. It's very expensive to go through the immigration process. You have filing fees with immigration. Petitions that when you're filing for family members are $535 a piece. If you've got 5 kids that you're filing for, that's a lot of money. Green card applications are $1,225 a piece. That's a lot of money. So the fees are very expensive. And then on top of that, if you're having legal representation, you have legal fees on top of that. So it is a very, very expensive process, one that immigrants are willing to pay as part of, you know, getting their legal status, but it is cost prohibitive for a lot of people. Another problem that we have is misinformation and or predatory legal representation. So TikTok and Facebook have become the bane of existence for me as an immigration attorney. There are a lot of shady people out there espousing misinformation on those platforms. Lots of good people out there, but also lots of bad misinformation. And so people are desperate. People want to have legal status. And if there's someone out there that is supposed to know what they're talking about, telling them stuff, if you don't know any better, you fall into that trap, paying those fees. And a lot of times you end up in worse situation than you were. When you file these applications with immigration, if you were undocumented before, you know, by filing these applications, you are notifying immigration that you're here in this country. You're giving them your exact physical address. So if you're filing applications that you're not eligible for and they get denied, guess what? Immigration knows where you're at now. They didn't before, they do now. So a lot of times you end up in worse situations than had you not done anything. So as frustrating as all this stuff is, I know this is a very proactive group, right? You all went like, what can we do? How can we help? Well, the first thing that we already talked about is contact your congressional representatives, your senators, your congressmen and women, and advocate for comprehensive and intelligent immigration laws. Don't let the fear mongering rule everything, right? Most Americans are very pro-immigrant. I think there's a very loud, small subsection, and they tend to be very, very loud, but they're not big. So we just need to let our state senators and congressional representatives know that we've got their back. The community does support this. Don't listen to those loudmouths over there. We've got your back. We want this to go through. We care about our community members. We care about the kids in our school. We care about the people working next to us. This is stuff that we need, right? Everybody agrees the system is broken. Let's fix it, right? Another thing that you can do is contributing to organizations like these great organizations that are doing great work. I can't help everybody that comes into my office. A lot of people can't afford my fees, and I realize that. I do try to work with them as much as possible, but at the end of the day, I am not a nonprofit. I do my fair share, I think, of pro bono representation, but unfortunately I can't. I wish I could do every case pro bono. That would make me very happy, but I can't. And there's lots of great organizations in our community that do pro bono representation and are very, very sorely needed. Again, having legal representation matters, whether it's me as a lawyer or an accredited representative. Having the people with the knowledge fill out those forms, ask those questions, ask those screening questions to be like, oh, okay, maybe technically you're eligible for this, but you're not actually going to be able to use it. So let's not pay immigration money for something you can't use. Let's not put you in danger of being put into removal proceedings for something that you can't use, right? So legal representation does matter. And whether it's a private attorney or these great organizations, you contributing to them helps them to be able to help more people. So the diocese, World Relief, in Iowa, we also have the Iowa Migrant Movement for Justice, which is formerly Justice for Our Neighbors. Diversity Service Center in Muscatine is also an organization that helps low-income immigrants with their applications. Prairie Lands Freedom Fund is an organization that they pay the immigration bond for people that are detained by immigration. So a lot of people that get picked up by ICE are detained in jails. They don't have to have criminal records. A lot of these people that are in jails that are in immigration detention have zero criminal records, or maybe a speeding ticket or a no license ticket or something like that. And if they're detained, they have to pay an immigration bond to be released from custody to be able to fight their immigration case, or they basically get pushed much quicker through the detained docket in immigration court. If you're detained in a jail, it's really hard to have legal representation, right? So if you're in a criminal proceedings, you have the right to an attorney. You have a right to an attorney to defend you, whether you can afford one or not. You don't have that right in immigration court. There's no such thing as we will provide an immigration attorney for you. So that organization will help pay the immigration bond for people to be released from custody. So they're not sitting in a jail 3-6 hours away from their family members while they're trying to fight their deportation cases. So yeah, that's kind of my spiel, and I think we'll be happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Okay, okay. Okay, great. I feel like the Mighty Oz. Okay, I'm gonna start my timer now. Okay. Hello, everyone. Greetings from Chicago. Sorry I cannot be there in person, but you know, I have been to the Quad Cities several times, and I have worked with QC Air, worked with Quad Cities and War Relief in the Quad Cities. Hello, Ratco. And we have shared information regarding the services that the diocese provides. Hello, Karina and Griselda. So I'm going to say a few words about the work that my organization, the Illinois Coalition for Immigrants and Refugee Rights, does.
Can you fix the sound, please?
Hello, hello, hello. Okay, is this any better? Hello.
I can't hear.
Okay. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Okay. Okay, is this better?
That's better.
Can I press? Okay. Again, sorry I'm not there in person. But okay. So ICRR is our state's largest multi-ethnic immigrants' rights advocacy organization. We have about 100 member organizations throughout the state. As you might imagine, mostly concentrated in Northeast Illinois, the Chicago area, but we do have members and partner organizations throughout the state, including the Quad Cities, but also in other communities as far south as Carbondale. And we also reflect the broad diversity of immigrants and refugee communities throughout the state as well. As you might imagine, the majority are, represent communities from Latin America, but we also represent East Asian, South Asian, Middle Eastern, African, and European immigrant communities. I think every continent except Antarctica, though I think we may see a few penguins occasionally. We are probably best known for our state level advocacy work. Over the years, and mind you, I'm getting a kick out of hearing how long all of my fellow panelists have been doing this work. I just rolled over 25 years at ICRR. So I may have you all beat. Anyway, during that time, thanks to a lot of really good grassroots organizing, work with our member organizations and strategic partnerships, we've been able to win a series of, state laws and state policies. Starting with funding for immigrant services that I'll say a few more words about, but support, financial support and in-state tuition for immigrant students, driver's licenses for undocumented motorists, legislation that limits police cooperation with ICE, legislation that ends ICE detention in the states, and much more recently, legislation that expands healthcare coverage for low-income adults, regardless of immigration status, and also financial relief in the form of an earned income tax credit that is available, again, regardless of immigration status, to households that file using a Treasury Department ITIN number, an individual taxpayer ID number. We're currently, building upon many of those victories. I've spent much of the last 24 hours dealing with our bill to make further enhancements to our driver's licenses. We're working on a bill to address medical debts and prevent hospitals from pursuing collections if they don't pre-screen people for eligibility for healthcare coverage and financial assistance. We are also continuing to push for funding for immigrant services. Here in Illinois, we're very fortunate to have a state government that provides really robust funding for immigrant services. And I'm proud to say that World Relief Quad Cities and QC Air are program partners in that endeavor. We run one program called the New Americans Initiative that provides wraparound services for individuals who are seeking assistance with citizenship or with DACA renewals. And that includes not just organizing workshops and conducting legal screening and classes, but also for certain individuals who don't qualify for fee waivers, providing scholarships to underwrite the costs of their application fees. So that's one program. Another major program that we're running is the Immigrant Family Resource Program that provides interpretation services, case management, and community education regarding public benefit access here in Illinois. The infrastructure that we've developed in building out this program has also enabled us to serve Afghan arrivals, Ukrainian arrivals, and much more recently, asylum seekers who've been bused up to the Chicago area from Texas and elsewhere on the southern border. And I'll say a few more words about that too. Much more recently, we've begun a program that provides direct cash assistance to individuals who were not eligible for federal pandemic-related aid because of their immigration status. So these are individuals and households who did not receive the stimulus checks, who were not eligible for the extended unemployment benefits. They were just excluded by virtue of their immigration status. So we were able to advocate for and win funding for and now administer a program that provides cash stipends for many of these individuals who have been in need and still remain in need as largely as a consequence of COVID. I did mention the work that we're doing with the asylum seekers. This has actually been taken up a good amount of our attention and time. Mainly among my coworkers, but I'm certainly affected by this, and many of the rest of us are affected by this as well. The Chicago region saw almost 4,000 people bust up from Texas since Labor Day. And we are working with the state of Illinois to provide shelter and care services and case management for many of the individuals in the care of the state. About 1,500 people who are staying in who are in extended stays at hotels in the Chicago region while they're awaiting a decision on their cases or waiting to apply for their cases, submit applications for their cases, or for that matter, just trying to seek permanent housing outside of the hotels and trying to become self-sufficient. We have been involved in federal advocacy on this front, and this is actually a good transition into the federal work that we do. we've been also trying to, call out, not just Governor Abbott in Texas and and Governor DeSantis in Florida for the way that they've been treating the migrants, but also calling for more and better federal leadership and coordination on this front, and in particular, calling for more resources from the federal government to help organizations that are providing these care services, as well as the local and state governments that are that are coordinating those services. We're also calling for a longer term solution for many of these individuals. So, similar to the Afghan Adjustment Act that Rocco was describing, we believe that there should be solutions to many of the Venezuelans and Cubans and Nicaraguans and Haitians who've been coming to the Chicago region and other cities, whether it's in the form of some kind of parole or temporary protected status or something like that, that would provide them with a temporary status and enable them to work and become more self-sufficient. Why the federal government isn't doing this, I really don't have a good idea. But we're still pushing for that. And we are fortunate though that in the recent federal spending bill that passed at the end of the year, there is some additional funding available for care services for these individuals. That money, however, is not yet flowing. So we still need to prod on this. Other federal advocacy that we've been involved in, I mentioned the Afghan Adjustment Act. We've been involved in coalition work here in the Chicago region, to push for the Afghan Adjustment Act. The only additional thing I will add to this, I think we've been kind of dancing around this, but for those of you who don't know, the major brick standing in the way of passing the Afghan Adjustment Act is Senator Grassley. So those of you in Iowa, call out your senior senator, and get him on the dime with the Afghan Adjustment Act. Okay, I think many other states, including including Illinois, we've been working with our senators to get them on board. But Grassley is the big obstacle here. I should also add, kind of in the spirit of what Summer was talking about, we've been pushing for legalization for almost as long as I've been working at ICRRR, and I'd like to think that by the time I'm able to retire, which won't be for several more years yet, I'll be able to finally assist people with the legalization process. So we've been kind of at one of the organizations pushing for some version of the DREAM Act, which is the lead sponsor of that is Illinois' own Dick Durbin. But again, we understand that the DREAM Act is not enough, and so about a year and a half ago now, in the context of Build Back Better, we and many other organizations were pushing for, a broader solutions and better eligibility for people, not just people who would be eligible for the DREAM Act, but also people who, people have just been here for a very long time, and who've developed, who've settled in the communities, jobs and children and homes, so a really generous registry program would solve many of the issues here and provide a relatively easy pathway to citizenship. So we were pushing for that. Unfortunately, Build Back Better ran aground, and attempts to include immigration provisions in that legislation also ran aground. But we're still pushing. And we still need to continue organizing to make sure that even if again, as Summer noted, Congress is kind of difficult these days. When the next opportunity arises, we'll be much better able to take advantage of it. And Okay, I have 1 minute and 15 seconds left, so I'll stop there. Thank you.
If anybody needs any cards to write questions on.
Pass out the cards, but I think probably it's verbal questions.
Okay.
So,
Griselda described a situation where a man was kidnapped, tortured, and now his family is being threatened with the same if he does not pay protection. Someone, could you explain why Griselda can't simply have him apply for asylum?
Well, the first hurdle is getting here to actually apply for some. As I'm sure many of you know. Yeah, I'm sure many of you know that or have been watching the news that our asylum laws have taken a very direct hit over the last 4 or 5 years. It's always been difficult to apply for asylum in the United States. And the approval ratings are fairly low. But the previous administration has been continuing with the current administration has made it more difficult to actually get to the United States to apply. So his first hurdle would be even getting to the United States to file for asylum. With the current plan kind of that's in place right now, especially for Mexicans, is they need to present themselves at the border to a border officer and say, I am seeking asylum. So they need to get to an actual border place to seek for asylum and hope that an officer that follows the rules and does what they're supposed to in order to get this person applying for asylum. It used to be you got let into the United States to fight your asylum case here in the United States. You were put in removal proceedings. The government knew exactly where you were. They kept tabs on you, like fought your immigration case from the immigration judge. Now they are forcing people to remain in Mexico, waiting for their turn for their asylum interview. And that is a difficult process because they're saying in situations that are not good, there's a lot of violence on the border. So a lot of these people's personal safety is in danger while they're waiting to apply for asylum. You know, the whole process is, I'm an immigration lawyer and I don't even understand it. Like I just, to me, the concept, I don't get it. Present yourself. They give you basically a, here's your number, wait in line type of thing. They're now asking people to report by cell phones is the latest reiteration on the borders. Like, do you have a cell phone? Are you in an area with reliable reception? Can you afford that cell phone? Use it. Like, it's mind-boggling. So that's the first hurdle, is even being able to file for asylum. Asylum means that you are you have fled from your country because you've either been persecuted or fear being persecuted by the government or someone the government cannot control on one of 5 groups. Your race, religion, national origin, membership in a particular social group.
Politics.
Political opinion. Yes, thank you. You have to be persecuted because of one of those reasons. If you're not being persecuted because of one of those reasons, you don't qualify for asylum. So what our current immigration system, basically what happens to a lot of people in Mexico is there's just a lot of violence, a lot of violence, right? And so that gentleman was being targeted because he had money. He was being targeted by the Mexican government. He is being targeted by a group that maybe is getting help from some government officials, maybe not. But so our asylum laws say, well, that's not the government that's going after you. And even if you try to make the argument, well, it's someone that the government can't control, is either unwilling or can't control, and then they say, well, maybe, maybe not, but they're not really targeting you for one of those five specific. They're not targeting you because of your political opinion. They're not targeting you because of the color of your skin or something else. It's just everybody in Mexico is being targeted. You got money, they're targeting you for that. And that is not a basis for asylum.
Wouldn't that be a particular social group?
So the particular social group is you don't fit in one of the other four, trying to shoehorn you in there, but it's a very, very complicated area of law. It is one that the immigration laws keep whittling down. So it has to be, there's a whole mess of cases that continue to get changed all the time. What is a particular social group? Are you visible? Like, if I looked at you, could I tell that you were a member of this group or not? So if he's walking down the street, there's not necessarily anything for a person who didn't know him to be like, oh, he's a wealthy business owner. There's lots of specific reasons, definitions of what is a particular social group. You can't use it based on the persecution that you're facing. So, I'm a business owner who's been extorted. Well, your extortion doesn't make you part of that's not sufficient for a particular. So a lot of trying to fit them into a particular social group is very, very.
And he's not,
He did not feel comfortable leaving his place, going to the border, because he doesn't know this bill, what measures they have. And during that process, is he gonna reach the border alive? So he just wanted to win directly to the United States. With some kind of measure.
Is there a backlog in the immigration court?
Oh, God, yeah. Depending on what court you're in, so there's a huge backlog in immigration courts. If you live in Iowa, your immigration court is in Omaha, so Omaha, Nebraska for all your. If you are in Illinois, your immigration court is in Chicago. There are only 3 physical judges in Omaha. They're starting to do some televideo with other judges in other areas. Fred, I don't remember how many judges are in Chicago now. It seems like every time I turn around, you're going to be. So
Yeah, I think it's up to about 15. I can check really quickly.
So your likelihood of winning your asylum case, it's all the same law, right? It should apply equally everywhere. It doesn't. Your chances just between those 2 courts of winning your asylum case in the Chicago court is significantly higher than. And each judge has their own percentages. So the Syracuse University has the track system. You can Google track system, track asylum, and it lists the approval and denial rates of every immigration judge, the ones that are listed. And so you can see if I have this judge, I have a 80% chance of winning my asylum case. If I have this judge, I have a 2% chance of winning my immigration case. And those could be judges in the same court. And it also, the detained versus non-detained is going to be a big thing as well. You're much more likely to win your asylum case if you're not detained than if you are detained.
You just get the judge by random?
Oh yeah, you don't get to choose your judge.
Can't change either.
No, you can't change your judge.
I have a couple of questions I've received from the audience. Has anyone on the panel heard of the old Alliance for Progress for Central America? Bill, do you want to explain that? Is that a group that used to exist or?
Well, 1961, right after the election, John F. Kennedy, he made a major program put forward, which is called the Alliance for Progress. And what it amounted to was a Marshall Plan for Central America. The whole purpose of it was to provide Peace Corps volunteers, international loans, funding, huge amounts of money to raise the standard of living in Central America, to address the violence and crime and problems mostly due to, lack of government, lack of efficient government, violence and so forth. Because people weren't immigrating here from Canada, don't today. Why? Because Canada is a wealthy country. But then after, and there was pictures on TV, I remember they would show very poor living conditions, a house or something, a hut, whatever, in Central America. And there would be a picture of Pope John and John F. Kennedy, because people saw what was the goodness of all that. So the answer, I guess, as a liberal, you want to get to the root cause of things. You can play around the fringes. God bless you for doing what you do. Thank you for doing what you do. But that's not going to solve the real problem. People are going to continue to come to this country to get away from violence and crime and poverty. Now, I know the current president put forward a little bit of a program of money to try to create financial progress in Central America. But the real issue we saw after the Second World War, we did it to raise the standard of living in Central America, Japan, and those countries are all healthy today, and that's history. But we need to do the same thing today. And I guess that's what I would like to see people lobby for again. But what happened, you say, well, what happened to the program? Tell you what happened, those of us who were around back, we made the biggest mistake of the 20th century. We got involved in Vietnam. Ended up 59,000 American men and women killed and a couple of million Vietnamese. And so all the money went over there, and that ended effectively the Alliance for Progress. But read the history on it. Try to promote that whole thing, because it ain't going to be solved by these little patch efforts. It's raise the standard, people won't come. Think about why the hell would anyone want to come to Iowa? Go south. Go south. I went south last week, or week. So anyway, that's
That's a good point, Bill, but in the meantime, we have these long waiting periods. So, do you have any thoughts on how to organize to maybe do something about these long waiting periods? Do you think it's a resource issue? Are there not enough people working in immigration process at the federal level, or?
Well, they are jacked the information here fairly soon. So there's an open comment period, and you all, as public, so the public can make comments on this.
You mean in Iowa? There.
The federal government is increasing all the filing fees for USCIS.
Okay.
USCIS is funded almost entirely on the fees that collect the application. So that's why they don't shut down when they shut down, because they don't receive a lot of money from the federal government. Their excuses of that the situation with the asylum at the border has drained too much resources, and that's why they need the filing. So the comment period has actually been extended an additional 5 days or something like that. March 9th now, I think, the closing period.
How do you comment?
It's on the Federal Register, and you go.
Do a web search on the Federal Register.
Yeah.
Regulations.gov.
Thank
It's
you.
posted on regulations.gov.
And anybody can make comments on that. So one of the things I have a problem with proposing to charge more for paper filing versus an electronic filing. So if you don't have access to a computer or internet and have to file by paper, which a lot of our clients do, it's going to cost you more to file this form. And if you've never had to use the USCIS.gov website, it is hot mess. It doesn't work half the time. There's glitches. I'm a Luddite, I admit it, and I have so far not had any applications online because it's just such a hassle. So theoretically, if those fees increase, right, all that extra money is going to go to hiring additional staff to process these cases faster. But that's on the backs of the people that need it. And don't.
It's going to deter a lot of people from applying, so that might reduce the backlog.
Yeah, right.
All right, we had
If I may.
back here.
It's not specifically a question, but in regard to what he said. I came to this country as a refugee, Rocco, and Rocco have helped me over the years, and I interact with all of these people. I went for QCM. Being a refugee is not a small thing. And do we want, like you said, do we want to solve the problem that is causing people to get across the border? Or we only want to impact like financially? So the basic thing, like he said, is being able to seek information. What can we do? While we solving the current situation, what can we do to impact those countries so that we can stop what is causing people to cross this border? I just wanted to add on to what he said.
Thank you. Where did you come from?
I am from Liberia.
Liberia.
Yes, thank you. And I've been here for about 17, 18 years.
Oh, wow. Okay, I think I thought.
I just want to mention to this room of people that's so interested in helping immigrants and refugees that at St. Ambrose just decided to give approval to Dr. Novak, just from every campus of refuge. So we've set aside 2 houses on campus to start housing refugee families starting next fall. And so just during their initial process, and we're currently with Tapestry Farms on that, and we're just the initial process of it. We've also decided, founder of that program, that is from North Carolina and was a refugee, but now she's working at the university across the country. She is going to come to campus next fall. And we just decided yesterday to plan the Women's Social Justice Conference around the topic of immigration and refugees. So we'll be looking for speakers, we'll be looking for panel discussions, or just artists, musicians. We're starting to talk about it now because we really want it to be, as good as it can be. So if you just let me know if you have any ideas, for that, or one president that we'll be in touch. I'll be like, all of you guys. But and also we had talked about using that as an opportunity to talk about the Afghan Adjustment Act and to get some more engagement on that. But otherwise, if there's a different advocacy issue that is for all immigrants and refugees that we would want to push for the more comprehensive, like immigration reform at that time, we just want to pick the ones that are going to make maximum impact to kind of emphasize with the students. Then, I'll just be looking for ideas on that as well. Otherwise, probably would be after the just next. If Grassley's still the one blocking it, I think it makes sense here in Iowa. So.
I see, Rich. One Human Family currently has a video contest. The deadline is March 31st. Anybody can make a video. It could be on TikTok or on any of the platforms. You can just post it to YouTube. But it's addressing 5 issues that Iowa has become so horrible on. And one of those issues is immigrants. And it's so if you want to make a video, or please tell your children, grandchildren, neighbors, whatever. So far, I have 0 applicants. There are 5 $300 prizes available for those who make videos. So please make a video on the topic of Iowa needs immigrants. How do we help our refugees? So that's one of the 5 topics. So please make a video.
Or if you don't have a sign in your front yard, you're there. I put up on the layout.
Maybe less.
Okay, so I know that sometimes people write to their congressperson, senator, to follow up on piece of paperwork a little quickly. That probably roils the whole immigration process, because someone will see a letter from their senator, take the file, they'll put it up. But anyway, if we want to do that, we want to help somebody proceed on behalf of someone. What information should we have handy to give our senator or congressperson
For a particular person?
for a particular case? Any numbers, maybe?
They need to have the number, explain the case, the situation they have going through.
Yeah.
The waiting time. And then if they have a specific information about urgency.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that would be the main thing.
Would you mind repeating
Yeah,
that?
because they don't, normally the Congress, they won't expedite cases with immigration. Immigration won't say, the Congress for an expedite. You have to have something that is particular in your case that needs to be expedited, some urgent. Otherwise, they have to wait and waiting time.
Each senator and each congressional representative, you go on their website, they have a constituent services tab.
And on there, they'll have a link to dealing with government agencies, and immigration is one of those agencies. And each one of those will require you to fill out a form with the information that you're talking about, name, receipt number, the steps that you have taken, and the issues that you're having with the case. One quick tip is if you start with one congressional representative or one senator, don't jump to another one. They really hate when you do that. Once you pick who you're going to use, you're going to stick with them. And also realize that it's not an end all be all, because a lot of times they don't get anything either. Sometimes they're able to pick something loose, but it's not like they're going to be able to be like, oh, my case was denied and now the senator can get it approved. That's not how that works.
Sometimes they get that same information when we contact with immigration. They give us the information to us, how is that case? And when the Congress comes with them, sometimes they receive the same answer. Sometimes there is no difference with everything.
All right, well, we need to be winding down, and I have a couple of things to say. First of all, I would like to thank my committee, Alta Price, Margie, who you heard about. They do have those sign-in sheets, and any of you that put an email down, I will be reaching out to maybe continue the ideas of what we can do. I mean, I love Bill's idea. I love that. But one thing I want to do, and Progressive Action works in issue forums, and this is the Civil Rights Forum. One thing I'm going to do is set up a visit to Grassley's office. We went to talk to Miller Meeks's office in the fall, dealing with some of the monies putting into the federal spending bill at the end of the year. So, you know, we might as well spread our wealth. So I will be organizing that since we heard from Fred. Thank you for that, Fred, that this is a hurdle. I think it's an easy fix. Many of you that haven't gone to, I mean, it's an easy fix to be able to go to his office. Many of you that have done it, it's kind of fun and empowering, and you're like, wow, this is democracy in action. So if you want to be included in furthering this discussion, please put your email, and you'll hear from me, Allison Ambrose. The email you get from me will have my name in it, so you will be like, who is this strange person? But you guys were great, informational. Margie, your piece is publishable. That was so wonderful. My committee is great. I love working with all of you people. It's so great to see so many concerned people, and we can do little things and big things. We're hopeful that we can make a difference, and some of the ideas I've gotten from hearing, I'm really energized. So I'm so pleased about how this turned out. So thank you, everybody. And one last word.
If you know somebody, neighbor, friend, relative, who wants to petition for someone, just refer them with someone who has experience with it. Why? Because we have cases that they get stuck in the middle of the process because my neighbor who didn't charge me, tell me with the process, she knows how to fill it out, the application. That's not all. We need to check out the background in order to tell them if they qualify, what are going to be the benefits, what are going to be the consequences if they start a process. So if you want to spread the word, that would be great. It's a way to help the community and not damage or hurt them.
So send them to you versus trying to do it on your own.
Anybody who has experience with immigration.
Okay.
If they don't feel comfortable with the first opinion or the first advice, they have the right to ask for a second opinion. I mean, they don't have to start someone just because, oh, she referred me with her, I'm going to start with her or with him. No, they have the right to ask for a second opinion in order to continue with the process, because some people want to hear, oh, yes, you're going to be able to legalize your status. A surprise? No, you don't.
Just to follow up on that, in the United States, you cannot practice law without a law degree, right? Filling out immigration forms is practicing law, okay? Legal representatives, so the BIA has an accredited representative program. They're not lawyers, but they have all taken coursework in order to be able to spot these issues, to fill out these forms. It is not just filling out forms. So if your person is not a BIA accredited rep or an attorney, they have no business, no matter how big their heart is, in doing this.
What's the BIA Bureau?
Board of Immigration Appeals.
Oh.
That's the
And
appellate board
now-
of immigration.
Now, just
Yeah, so that, you know, if they're not a BIA rep, DOJ rep, or a licensed attorney, send them to one of those individuals, okay?
Now, if they cannot pay the fees, there is a way to figure out how to can help. Wherever they go, they will find a way to help with the service fee. Immigration fee, that is another way too, but they need to check or review the case before they start some problem. That's all what I need to say.
Thank you again. Great job.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes, please. 1 second. With all that we are doing, QCR for the past few months, we have been trying to create a immigrant and refugee council in the Quad City area. And I have a few of my cards here to share with organizations that we can try to work together to establish the immigrant and refugee council, at least so that we can coordinate and we know who to give information. Fred is one of our people in Chicago. And I know I have been dealing with Laura from War Relief. And so Rocco is a friend of mine. Laura and I, we are organizing a festival in August. We do a lot and we will be doing whatever we can do. So the cards are here. Let us create a council so we can know exactly what we can all do to coordinate. Thank you so much for allowing us to do that. I give you a meeting with you.